Hi, blessed people. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for tapping on this video. If you're not a returning subscriber, much love. So today is a special video because I have a guest, Fatima Oyaoye, a sickle cell advocate and patient doing her PhD. She's going to join us shortly, and then we'll delve into the video. So sit back and relax. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. Hi, Fatty.
Okay, somebody's looking fashionable. I didn't get the memo.
Oh, stop. You're making me blush.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, that's great. It's nice to meet you finally. Like,
yeah,
not personally, but I mean,
how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you too?
I'm okay.
You sound good. Well. Anyway, so as you already know, this video is a brief sickle cell talk in memory of World Sickle Cell Day. So, just a brief introduction about yourself. Who is Fatima Oyaoye?
Okay, so I'm Fatima Oyaoye. I'm a PhD student at University of Bristol. And yeah, I'm a sickle cell warrior. I'm a sickle cell advocate, and I also love fashion. And yeah, I think that's me.
Wow, that's an awesome introduction. Okay, so to delve in, could you give us a brief explanation of what sickle cell is to like a layman?
Okay, so I'd say sickle cell is a genetic disease. First of all, that sounds a little bit complicated, but in layman's term, I would just say that it's when you have a defect in what makes you, and you then pass it on to your children, and when they inherit like those two defects, they have sickle cell disease. So basically, you can describe sickle cell as an egg. An egg has a yolk. Okay. But in case of sickle cell disease, you sort of have like half the yolk. Yeah, I think that should sort of like give an idea of okay, what happens when somebody have like half yolk. Yeah. So basically, just doesn't let it function well. It changes the shape of the egg and so many other things. And that's what I would describe sickle cell is to a lay person. I think it's more easier to understand that way.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I see that is a very general and vivid explanation to sickle cell. So anybody watching this video who doesn't know what it is gets it. So as someone living with sickle cell, I'm also a sickle cell patient, and I've been yearning to do this because it feels like a breaking point, a point where I come to social media that I am an advocate, but I'm also a patient. That is why I am an advocate. So thank you very much for joining me on this. I'm so excited.
Happy to.
Okay, so you grew up in Nigeria, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so personally, my experience in Ghana with healthcare systems for sickle cell patients hasn't been rosy. My experience running from hospital to hospital admissions, sometimes when you're trying to explain your pain, they don't really understand you. So I want to know, how is it like in Nigeria? Are the healthcare systems more understandable when it comes to it, or it's an African thing?
To be honest, I think it's like an African thing. My experience is quite different from every other sickle cell person because I, first of all, come from a family of a long history of sickle cell. So we do have a lot of sickle cell people in my family to start with. And then my uncle is a doctor. So most times when I was way younger, most times when I fall sick, it's just like I just have to go to him and then I get better, all these things. But then after a while that, I grew up and I've had to like use other hospitals. I've had situations where people sort of like doubt my pain. They're not sure whether I'm just here to get a pain medication and get high, or I am really sick. And sometimes I think the worst questions that I hate when people ask me is, rate your pain. I know it's crazy because it helps them judge how much of pain med to give you, but then it's crazy. I'm literally crying. How am I supposed to answer? How am I supposed to rate my pain? You know? So yeah, think it's just like in some hospitals are really great, some are just pure horrible.
Yeah. So at what age did you realize that, oh, this is what I have, this is how I got it, and this is how I can manage myself? At what age did you realize that this is sickle cell disease? And how did you take it?
Like I said, I do come from a family of sickle cell disease. And then the interesting thing about my family is that they also don't treat you specially. So for a long time, I didn't exactly know what it means. I just knew that, I fall sick often and I get exempted from some activities in school. But it then became really, really clear to me that I had sickle cell disease and that it was a serious thing when I was, I think, about 11, when I decided, I cried my eyes out to go to a boarding house. Wow. And that was like when I really found out that I had sickle cell disease and then have to deal with it and yeah.
Anyways,
it wasn't
to share. Okay, to share my story. Okay, I didn't know all my life. Okay, I live with my auntie and my uncle who are both medical officers. My auntie is a nurse and my uncle is a doctor. So I guess that is one of the reasons why I lived with them or I grew up with them. But I think I realized that this is it when I was in senior high school, and I fell. Okay, and I went to the hospital, and then I was diagnosed with avascular necrosis. So that was the point that I realized that, okay, so this is why I got this. And then I started to research more about it, and then I got on hydroxyurea, and then the journey has been interesting so far. So talking about medications, apart from, let's say, folic acid, which I think is the normal one that everybody takes, what other medications have you been on, and what extreme painkillers have you gotten during your crisis period?
For me, it's quite interesting because I haven't been on any other medication aside, folic acid, zinc tablets, and the prophylactic anti-malaria. And I don't know exactly why. I think when I was growing on, I did take a lot of supplements that purported to, cure sickle cell disease. And I did take a lot of herbs. Some of them, if I go back in time, I probably wouldn't take them because they're pure horrible and they probably even would damage some organ, but they're a bad idea. But then I did take a lot of all those things because, everybody just wants you to get better from sickle cell. And in terms of pain medication, for a better part of my life with sickle cell, I'd say I started taking strong pain medication from like the age of 13.
Wow.
And I think my first ever strong pain medication was tramadol. And then I went on to take pens and all those serious opioids as pain medication. But now I think I'm a steady diclofenac person. Yeah.
Okay. So also you are a woman. I'm sure you know where this question is going.
Yeah.
The time of your month and sickle cell pain. Never have crisis during that time?
Yeah, it's horrible. Actually, before now, I think, let me say before I got into uni, even when I was in uni, actually, my first year, second year, I've had like terrible periods because when I'm on my period, the whole world knows that I'm on my period because for a better part of it, I am in the hospital taking fluids and pain medication because I think I get crisis normally and then I get pain from my period coming, and it's like just a mix of that and also like losing blood. I think it was just like a lot. And I remember very well my first period, I was having a shower and I noticed that my period had come and it was like also quite heavy. And I remember that after that shower, going to eat and all those things, I remember passing out in the dining room. I was losing blood. My blood was also breaking down and I had crisis. It was just like a lot for my system to like undo at a go. But now I've learned to like manage it because I prepare ahead of my period. But there are days that I also have like really terrible periods. Also a bit of associated to, sickle cell disease.
Wow. So, how has living with sickle cell for the past few years of your life changed your lifestyle? When I go to the hospital, I'm mostly told to drink a lot of water, eat fruits, all of that. And sometimes it's very stressful when you tell me to drink like more than 3 liters of water, because why should I intentionally be drinking that much of water? But I feel like now drinking a lot of water has become like a lifestyle. If I don't do it, I feel like, hey, I've not done something, you know. So I want to ask how it has changed your lifestyle, eating habits, going in and coming out. How has it changed?
I think it's changed pretty much every part of my lifestyle when it comes to like how I do things, how I eat, where I go to, and like traveling, also like what I wear. I remember when I was like really young, even up to like uni, my mom hates it when I wear the color yellow. And that's because the yellow reflection from probably my shirt goes into my eyes and she thinks I'm jaundice. I really love yellow, but every time I want to get a yellow top, I'm like, my mom wouldn't like it, so I probably wouldn't just buy it. You know, that's like an impact in my fashion life, you know. But like when it comes to like water, I think that is where the stress is. I have to tell you, I hate to take a lot of water, even though I have to. It's so stressful. And I've kind of like had to, you know, go around with bottles. Even if I don't want to, I have to do that. And the medication, oh my God, I think there are days where I deliberately say I am not taking my drugs. There are those days that I just like, I am done. I'm not taking anything today. And when it comes to like my lifestyle in terms of what I do not do, before I had that mentality, when I was young, I wouldn't do sports. I just wouldn't put myself in any situation to like, you know, get stressed. But that has like changed significantly because now I kind of like, you know, push the button a little bit. I've now started going to the gym. The first time it was so painful. I thought I was going to get a crisis, but I didn't. And then, you know, it got better over time. So I felt like I really missed out as a young person because I didn't get to do any sport. I'm not good at any sport whatsoever because of sickle cell, which is like a significant impact in my social life, if you would ask me. And and the fact that, okay, so I recently just traveled to the UK and I was going to go through a very complicated process. And one thing I just kept on thinking about is the fact that if I travel without wearing, I don't know if you know, it is a third stocking, I'm going to have swollen feet because of sickle cell. So not only do I have to factor taking a lot of medication when traveling, I also have to factor on how I dress whilst I travel and like, you know, so many things. I think it has a great impact in my life, everything I have to do on a daily basis. But most importantly, it's sort of the reason why I tend to do a lot of the things I do. It's like something that pushes me and, you know, makes me want to be a greater person, really.
Wow. So moving on, there are several myths about sickle cell anemia. And I wanted to talk about myths and also discrimination, for lack of a better word. So I found myself in an environment where one time in school, I was eating at the canteen and someone made a comment that if you were sickle cell, are you not dead by now? And I was like, wow, bro.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is someone who is in my class, a third year biochemistry student, and who is being informed almost every day, like almost every day in class. Sickle cell is like an example of a disease for biochemistry. So I'm like, this is someone, it's not like you're ignorant, but like,
so why are you thinking?
Yes. So I want to ask, in such a situation, personally, how would you relate to it? I took it quite okay because I mean the people didn't know that I was sickle cell, so I have no reasons to get angry or anything. But personally, I'm like, how could you be so like daft or something? So how would you relate to that? And debunking myths in sickle cell anemia, I found this one myth. They say that sickle cell is commonly found in people in an African descent. It can affect individuals from various ethnic backgrounds, including Mediterranean, Middle East, and Indian regions. Comparing, let's say, my country to other Western countries, the weather is quite different. The temperatures are lower out there than here, but the myth says that African countries have like more sickle cell patients. So could you debunk that for us?
Okay, I'm going to start with the myth. Okay. So sickle cell did originate from Africa, so it's only expected that we have a high proportion of that in African countries. You would have a couple of them in other countries, probably due to people immigration, people moving out, and obviously also intermarriages. So you'd see it in other countries, but it is mostly predominant in Africa. But there are other. So where the issue comes is that if we're talking about sickle cell as in hemoglobin SS, it's mostly prevalent in Africa. But if you're talking about the other types of sickle cell, like sickle cell thalassemia, sickle cell D, sickle cell He, you'll find it in the Mediterranean. They're more predominantly over there than it is in Africa or abroad. But then it is highly prevalent in Africa, probably due to the fact that there's not enough information, especially with marriages. People just get married and they don't know their genotype. So there are so many factors that could account for that. But then they are found in other parts of the world too. Then in situations where people talk ignorantly about sickle cell, I think it was one of the reasons why I started to talk about sickle cell on my social media platform, and also be an advocate and really, really talk about, put it in my everyday life. And this is because sickle cell patients are most times put in a box. They just feel like once you have a sickle cell person, it's an automatic death sentence. You do not have a life. You're not allowed to dream. You're not allowed to have preference in whatever it is in the world that normal people have preference in. So, which is why I really, really started talking about sickle cell disease. And I'm always so proud to say that, I have sickle cell. I'm pursuing a career in being a researcher and all of these things. And I still have sickle cell and I'm doing fantastic work in it. So most times when I see people talk about sickle cell, I just naturally just say, you don't know and you need to be schooled. So I probably would just sit down with you and be like, do you know I have sickle cell disease? Do I look like I have sickle cell disease? And then from there, you stem up from there and tell them, what, sickle cell is not all you think that it is. I mean, internet may put it like, once you have sickle cell, that's the end of your life. You probably don't have a word after that and all those things. But then, I mean, it's up to us to now change the narrative and let them see that sickle cell disease individuals do live normal lives. It's just when we are sick.
Thank you very much. So for the last part of this video, the theme for World Sickle Cell Day for this year is building and strengthening global sickle cell communities, formalizing newborn screening, and knowing your sickle cell disease status. As a medical person who has studied sickle cell for a while and is also a warrior for a career, how do you, contribute your quota in helping for the achievements of this year's theme?
Yeah, so initially I am part of a small organization with only I think we've been doing sickle cell screening for the past 3 years now. It's called Advocacy Know Your Status, and this year we had actually planned to do 500 screenings for young children. We are focused mostly on children because the earlier you know, the better. Sometime in September. Not necessarily to mark the World Sickle Cell Day, but because of the numbers that we're going to, and September is also the Sickle Cell Awareness Month. It is an awareness program which we obviously run throughout the month. So one thing I've personally done is to put myself in organizations where sickle cell disease is their main goal. Try to raise awareness using my social media platform. And also this year, on Monday, I'll be having a Instagram live where I talk about bedwetting in sickle cell disease. I think there's so many complications of sickle cell disease that people do not know about, and I've made it a point to bring it out there. Let's talk about it, no matter how uncomfortable it is. We're going to talk about it.
Yes.
So
I mean, if we don't talk
somehow,
about it, who would?
who will? Like, we actually live the life, and there's so many things people don't know about it because we don't talk about it. So, I mean, one of the things that I'm most interested in recently is talk about the most uncomfortable things. Like, it's easier to talk about the comfortable things. The uncomfortable things are the things that are really hard to talk about, which is like my aim right now. Let's talk about that uncomfortable part of sickle cell. So yeah, I think personally that's how I would be, celebrating my World Sickle Cell Day.
Wow. So thank you so much for joining me. It means so
Thanks
much,
so much for
and
having
I'm very
me.
grateful. So guys, don't forget to follow Fati on her social media pages at Sickle and Chick, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like the username
Sickle Cell and Heart, babies.
Yeah, honestly, you're actually a very big motivation for me, and I'm grateful to God that at least we've crossed paths one way or the other. I know particularly my sister, so those who don't know, you're welcome. Yes, so I'm looking forward to the day I'll meet you in person.
I cannot wait.
And yeah, I can't wait to see what you have for the sickle cell community, and keep being you. Thank you very much once again
much for having me. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. I hope this helps somebody. Everybody should come out and talk about sickle cell.
Yes. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.